You seriously didn't know? The entire shelter's been battling the sacred blood creature since early this morning. Since the creature's been found, it's the only thing anyone's been able to talk about, Tobias said as his eyes darted around the empty steel armor shelter, making sure no one was listening. Thrilled by the idea that there was a sacred blood creature, Sen pressed Tobias for more. You can't just leave me with that. What kind of creature is it? How big is it? It has to be something exceptional if everyone in the entire shelter was after it. Nervous, Tobias looked both ways to make sure that no one was listening. Even if Tobias was more trusting than others in God's sanctuary, he still didn't want to be caught talking to Ass Freak. If only he knew that the Ass Freak he didn't want to be seen with was also Dollar, the golden knight who had sold him 50,000 level worth of lightning mantids. Once he confirmed that they were alone, Tobias's shoulders slumped. Sarah Arryn, son of heaven, and Deadly Fist called everyone to join them in the fight. That's where I'm actually heading now, to join Sarah Arryn and the rest of the Bullseyes. Sen's eyes lit up. If the three largest gangs of the Steel Armor Shelter were hunting a sacred blood creature, it had to be something incredible. Looking at the spear and shield in Tobias's hand, a small smile slipped out of the corner of Sen's lips. So if you're on your way to the fight, I take it that none of the gangs have been successful? With a sigh, Tobias shook his head. From what I heard, it's proven too much for just one of them to take down. Instead of fighting separately, the three of them had decided to work together to bring the beast down. Even with the smaller gangs and the lone warriors decided to join the fight. You don't say, Sen said, his heart racing as he heard more about the creature. Look, I got to go join the hunt. Enjoy the quiet while it lasts. Watching as Tobias trailed off with his shield and spear, Sen knew no one in the shelter expected him to join the fight. More rather, no one would be expecting Ass Freak to even bother with his presence in such an important battle. If anything, they would probably prefer that he didn't come at all. Knowing his presence wouldn't be missed, Sen smiled. Since they don't want Ass Freak to join, I might as well introduce everyone to Dollar. Eager to try his hand against a sacred blood beast, Sen set out for the sunset slope. The moment that Sen was far enough from the steel armor sanctuary, he summoned his sacred blood golden armor. If he wanted to get there to get a chance at the sacred blood beast, he had to use every advantage he had. If anyone is going to slay the beast, it has to be me, Sen thought as he pumped his arms forward, racing for Sunset Slope. After an hour of running, Sen found himself climbing up the mountain to the sounds of men clashing with the beast. The anguished cries of dying men mixed with the bleats of a furious beast rang across the cliffside, emboldening Sen to move even faster. Not wanting to be seen before he could strike, Sen stuck close to the mountainside, trying to remain hidden. But as he drew closer, the roars of the furious beast made Sen's heart pound. Just what kind of creature do I have the pleasure of looking forward to? As Sen reached the top of the hill, a horrific, bloody battle awaited him. All across the mountain, the ground was torn up by hooves and feet of beast soul mounts, and dozens of bodies of fallen warriors plagued the mountainside. Those who were still standing advanced up the mountain with their shield drawn toward the most horrific creature Sen had seen in God's sanctuary. With the head of a cow, the torso of a human, and the legs of a horse, the sacred blood beast let out a bone-chilling roar as it swung its golden-edged axe. The warriors attempted to charge up the mountain, but the beast easily smashed their line of defense with a single swing from its axe. Not interested in sharing its position, the beast slammed its hooves down, sending those fighting flying back down the mountain. Taken back by the beast, Sen couldn't believe the power it had. He needed to be patient and wait for the right moment to steal the final blow. The lack of a beast soul weapon meant that Sen had to rely on others to weaken the creature first, before he could make his move. At the base of the mountain, Sen could hear an all-too-familiar voice roar across the mountain. Charge! Son of Heaven screamed as he pointed his flaming sword at the beast. Spurring his Triceratops mount forward, Son of Heaven rushed the creature with his flaming sword drawn. Warriors scrambled out of his way as he cared not for who he ran over, as he pressed forward to pierce his prey. With a clear way before him, Son of Heaven, enraged to see his opponent would attack it head-on, the Minotaur dug its hooves into the ground and bared its horns. Son of Heaven's blade clashed with its horns, sending sparks into the air. Before the enraged beast could swipe at Son of Heaven again, Son of Heaven spurred his sacred blood mount and hurried to reposition itself for another attack. Over and over, Sen watched as the shieldmen slowed the sacred blood beast as Son of Heaven pushed the beast back. With the only buffer between the warriors and the beast's axe, Son of Heaven had the most important role in the battlefield. Keep the beast centered on the top of the hill. Sen hated to admit it, but even he was impressed. How does Son of Heaven have the power to take on a sacred blood beast? If I have any chances at swiping its beast soul for myself, I'll have to wait until they weaken it even more. Again, Son of Heaven raised his sword. Charge! As his Triceratops stampeded for the enraged sacred blood beast, Son of Heaven dodged its axe once again. Unfortunately for Son of Heaven, the beast had become familiar with his battle tactics. The beast roared as it swung its golden axe down onto Son of Heaven's Triceratops. Not having expected an attack there, Son of Heaven had no time to pull his mount away from the attack before the axe cut through the mount. As the golden axe collided with the beast, it cried out before its knees buckled. Surprised to lose his mount, Son of Heaven leapt off his sacred blood mount and watched as it crumbled to the ground, disappearing into a fine golden dust that dissolved into the wind. Now the only thing keeping the sacred blood creature back had been killed. Sen's eyes widened. In one hit, it took down Son of Heaven's sacred blood beast mount. Whatever beast soul this sacred blood creature drops, it has to be powerful. With nothing to stop it from fleeing, the beast swung its axe, knocking dozens of warriors off the cliff. Trying to push down the hill toward the fighters waiting to advance, the beast stormed forward. Before it could get too far, a volley of arrows came soaring from the sky.
"Keep firing!"
Sarah Arryn shouted as she directed the line archers at the base of the hill.
"Help the warriors on the hill retreat!"
Watching Sarah Arryn, Sen found himself stunned. While her leadership was known across the shelter, he hadn't seen it in person before. With clear control over her shoulders, Sarah directed the battle without hesitation. Despite the chaos, it was like she could see through it all. As the living men sprinted down the hill, Sarah waved her arm back.
"Now fall back! Retreat to get a better position!"
However, as she cried out for the men to regroup, Son of Heaven snarled. "Retreat! That bastard killed my mount! This is the time to push back harder and turn that cow into a burger!" Sarah shook her head.
"Fall back, Son of Heaven! We need to regroup!"
But as she cried out, Son of Heaven shouted for his warriors. "Come with me and find glory!" Confused about who to follow, warriors clashed as they attempted to go up the hill after Son of Heaven and down the hill toward Sarah Arryn. Lowering their weapons and raising to attack, the warriors tried to push past the retreating and advancing troops, with no idea who to follow. Quickly, arguments between the soldiers started to rise as people grew increasingly agitated. Even Deadly Fist, the leader of the Fingers, was bewildered with how to direct his men. "Sarah, what the hell is this? Where do I direct my squad?" Sarah simply shook her head.
"Son of Heaven's done it again. He's going to get us all killed."
While the chaos was sickening to those on the battlefield, it couldn't be more perfect for Sen. Now, with the opportunity to sneak toward the sacred blood beast, Sen carefully approached the hill that the beast dominated. If no one could see him before he was there, he'd have the perfect opportunity to sneak in the last blow. Keeping an eye on the clashing battlefield, Sen started to advance forward. "We just need to get as close as possible. If I can swipe the final shot in the last second, it'll be worth it." Desperate to get a hold of the chaos, Sarah decided to follow Son of Heaven's lead.
"Raise your arrows and provide them with cover. On my signal, fire!"
Now working together, Sarah's warriors launched a volley of arrows into the sacred blood beast, providing some cover to the charging men. Enraged that its attackers had returned, the beast reared its front legs. Not wanting to deal with the nuance any further, the beast turned its back to the fight and attempted to flee. As it tried to escape, Son of Heaven snarled and unsummoned his fiery sword. "No, you don't. I won't let you get away this time." In his hand, 2 green wings emerged and extended out until they curved into an iron bow that was almost half the size of Son of Heaven. In his opposite hand, a red hornet appeared before it transformed into a thin arrowhead that looked like a stinger. Seeing the red arrow in Son of Heaven's hand, Sarah waved her arms to stop him.
"No, you idiot. You only have one chance to get it right with that arrow. Pull back and we can come up with a plan."
The sacred blood wasp arrow flew out of Son of Heaven's hand like a red bolt of lightning. Thunder shook the mountainside as a red bolt of electricity collided with the sacred blood beast. The arrow had hit its target. Confused by the sudden pain in its chest, the beast stumbled backward. Before it knew it, the beast crumbled forward, its head hanging low. The beast had been defeated. All across the battlefield, warriors cheered on Son of Heaven's name. "That was amazing, Son of Heaven."
"This is why you're the king of the steel armor shelter."
"Let's hear it for Son of Heaven." Drunk from their praise, the battlefield's champion puffed out his chest. "Oh, you should see the other beasts I fought. That was nothing." Watching as Son of Heaven boasted to the people, Sarah scowled.
"Why is it always a production with him?"
Standing at her side, Tobias immediately agreed with his commander. Total production, Ms. Arryn. That was a group effort, and you were particularly a star."
"I don't need you bragging for me, Tobias."
"Of course not, ma'am, but I meant every word of it." Focused on Son of Heaven's infatuation with his own cheers, not one of the warriors in the crowd realized that someone was lurking, waiting for an opening. As everyone cheered on Son of Heaven, Sen kept an eye on the beast. From the heavy breathing, Sen could see that the sacred blood creature was still alive, but barely. One well-placed shot would easily kill the beast. Preoccupied with the cheering section, Son of Heaven turned his back to the wounded beast, leaving the sacred blood beast open for anyone to take. This is it. This is the moment. Clinging tightly onto his alloy blade, Sen readied himself. "I've only got one chance at this, and I had better make sure I do it right." Unaware of the slippery thief, Son of Heaven looked to the crowd as he waved to his adoring fans. "This really wasn't the hardest thing I've ever fought. If you just saw him up against the..." A golden streak flashed before his eyes. Making his move with the distracted Son of Heaven, Sen sped out of his hiding spot, straight for the beast. With his primitive spear in hand, Sen stabbed through the opening in the beast's chest. In one final motion, the beast raised its head before falling completely limp. "Sacred blood, bloody slayer killed. Sacred blood beast, soul gained." For a moment, the battlefield was quiet as everyone tried to understand what just happened. Even Sen was taken aback by the rush of the kill. Never had he thought he could take such a beast soul right underneath Son of Heaven's nose. It felt almost too good to be true. In the hush of the moment, Tobias's eyes widened as he shouted, "Is that Dollar?" Son of Heaven's eyes darted toward Tobias. "Who the hell is Dollar, and why the hell did he steal my sacred blood beast?"